The Pythagorean Theorem is an if-then statement. If you recall from last section, the if part is if triangle ABC is a right triangle, then a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Here's our right angle. Opposite the right angle is our hypotenuse. Opposite of vertex A is side A. Opposite of vertex B is side B. The converse of the Pythagorean theorem is going to be an if-then statement with our conclusion and our hypothesis switched around. The converse reads, if a squared plus b squared equals c squared, then triangle ABC is a right triangle. So how do we use this? Well, let's look at example 1. We have three sides to the triangle, 9, 12, and 15. The first thing we need to check is to make sure that 9, 12, and 15 make a triangle. And to do that, we take the two shortest sides, 9 and 12, and add them together, and we get 21, which is bigger than our third side. So this is a triangle. Now we need to identify what kind of triangle we have. All three sides are different, so the triangle is scalene. Now we need to figure out if the triangle is right or not. To do that, we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem converse. We're going to plug in 9 for A and 12 for B and 15 for C. We're going to pick 15 for C because 15 is the longest side of this triangle. And we're going to do that math. 9 squared is 81, 12 squared is 144, and 15 squared is 225. Now we need to add 81 and 144. So we get 225 compared to 225. And 225 is equal to 225. That tells us that this triangle is a right triangle. Example number 2. We have three sides. 9 and 12 is 21, which is bigger than our longest side, 14, so we do have a triangle. All three sides are different, so our triangle is scalene. Now we need to figure out if the triangle is right or not. I'm going to plug 9 in for A, 12 in for B, and 14 in for C, and compare the left side to the right side. 9 squared is 81, 12 squared is 144, and 14 squared is 196. 81 plus 144 is 225, and 196. So 225 is definitely not equal to 196. 225 is actually bigger than 196. So this triangle is not right. And if you remember from our studies of triangles, triangles are either right, obtuse, or acute. So in example number 2, our triangle has to be acute or obtuse. Now let's think about this. In our first example, our hypotenuse was equal to the two legs squared, and we got a right triangle. In example number 2, the hypotenuse has shrunk down. So if you think of it this way, when our hypotenuse gets smaller, what kind of angle do we have here? It's got to be an acute angle. So when the hypotenuse is smaller, we get an acute angle. If we write it as a theorem, if a squared plus b squared is greater than c squared, then we have an acute triangle. Let's look at example 3. This time our sides are 9, 12, and 16. 9 and 12 is 21, which is bigger than 16. All three sides are different, so we have a scalene triangle. But what kind of scalene triangle? Let's plug in our numbers into the Pythagorean theorem and find out. 81 plus 144 compared to 16 squared. 16 squared is 256. 81 and 144 is 225. And I'm going to compare 225 to 256. 256 is bigger than 225. 225 is less than 256. If you go back to our original, example 1, our hypotenuse was equal to our 2 legs squared. In our third example, our hypotenuse is now bigger. So what happens to our triangle? Well, in order to accommodate the bigger hypotenuse, this angle has to get bigger. So what kind of triangle do we have? An obtuse triangle. Written as a theorem, if a squared plus b squared is less than c squared, then we have an obtuse triangle. Last example. 9 and 12 and 6 square roots of 7. 9 and 12 is 21, but I don't know how big 6 square roots of 7 is. So I'm going to use my calculator to figure that out. It's about 15.9. 9 plus 12 is 21, which is bigger than 15.9, so we do have a triangle. All 3 sides are different, so we have a scalene triangle. Let's plug our numbers into the Pythagorean theorem. 6 square roots of 7 is our longest side, so I'm going to plug 6 square roots of 7 into the Pythagorean theorem. Doing the math, 9 squared is 81, 12 squared is 144, and 6 square roots of 7 squared. Notice that I put 6 square roots of 7 in parentheses. The operation between the 6 and the square root is multiplication, and I can distribute exponents over multiplication. They're next to each other in the order of operations, so I can distribute. 81 plus 144 is 225. 6 squared is 36. The square root of 7 squared is just 7. So we're going to compare 225 to 36 times 7. 36 times 7 is 252. And 252 is bigger than 225. So our hypotenuse is bigger. So this is a scalene obtuse triangle.